on the 27th of July. Medal of Honor winner. And he won the Medal of Honor. Is it all right if I know we're going to have a lot of questions, but I want to talk to you about that. He got shot down, and in his ejection, he had hit part of the wing, so it broke his arm in 3 places. Hurt his leg, sprained his back, and a big old sprain in his ankle when he hit the ground. He tried to evade, but was captured. He spent 15 days in, 5 days within the captivity in the north, right north of the DMZ, and he was beaten and maltreated by the North Vietnamese. That's why. They had him tied up with some just little nylon, really thin stuff. And at night, with 2 young guys like you as guards, not really caring what went on, it was dark at night, got out of his hands and escaped. And he escaped for 12 to 15 days. He's not for sure how long it was. But he is making his way back towards the DMZ. He actually crossed the river into South Vietnam. And he could see a helicopter setting down at a fire base. He says, gosh, I've got to make that spot. Rather than delivering troops, it was extracting troops. When it got there and nobody was there. He continues to E&E and escape further south and runs into a North Vietnamese, I don't want to call it a regiment, but it was a large number of guys, okay? And that was the reason they were extracting guys out of that fire base, is it was going to be overrun by the North Vietnamese. He tried to escape from them, shot in the leg, shot in the arm. Taken to Hanoi and was brutally tortured. He won the Medal of Honor for his efforts as a captive trying to escape. Gosh, what a guy. And he's just as personable as Mike is. One of my dearest friends, Roger Reisman. On Tuesday, he passed away from Alzheimer's. And what a loss to the United States of America, a true American hero. He embodies the word leadership. A Korean MiG ace with 8 kills. The first guy to actually start to push another airplane out of China into South Vietnam, or correction, South Korea. His wingman had been hit, was losing fuel, his motor flamed out. Robbie says, I will pull up behind him, stick my nose in the ass end of that F-86 and shove him to safety. He made it to the water. The kid jumped out over the water. That's what happened. Helicopter's right there to get him. But he did not release his chute. And the chute drug him under. Robbie then shut down his engine and was gliding towards home base until he had it fired up, climb back to altitude. Now it flames out, and he dead sticks his F-86 into his base, lands dead stick. God, you want to talk about a stud muffin? As far as I know, he's the only guy that's got 2 Air Force crosses. both earned in Vietnam. He was the squadron commander. He was always in the lead of his men as they went into combat. He was shot down twice. Hit the water once, second time, 6.5 years. You can see him and his fellow friend, Admiral Stockdale there. A true American hero. Another great leader and a friend of mine, now deceased also, Robin Rolls, the wing commander of the 8th Attack Fighter Wing, the base that I was stationed at. Personally, I'm there in '69, and he's there in '68. Again, Robin Rolls stands in front of his men, scared as he briefs the mission. But he does not show that fear. For if I show fear to you, it will transfer. And I want you to be the most positive, determined, ready to kill crew member that I can have. Therefore, I hide my fear. And I will tell you that I will bring you all home. Knowing full well that not everybody's going to make it. A true leader. A great fighter pilot. Privilege to know that he. Pardo's push was similar to what I talked about with Robbie. Pardo is pushing out his wingman. Again, losing fuel. Engines flame out. Pardo takes his F4 and tries to get under to turbo. Tries to get over the top of him and maybe suck him with him. Won't work. Finally tells him to drop his hook, puts the hook in front of his windscreen, shoves him feet wet. All the time in full burner to try to cut the descent as these two airplanes trying to get feet wet. They make it. Pardo's airplane flames out. When they get rescued, they dang near court-martialed him because he saved his wingman. Because he was ordered to leave him and return to base. He would not leave his wingman. He would not leave his fellow man behind. And he got him home safely. One of the happiest days of my life, this is the 28th of March, 1973. They were on the 141 coming out of the Hanoi area. I always like Bill Chalik right there. He was really big. The scene leading up to that was we were a military organization. When we unloaded from the buses, we dressed right, we marched. When our name was called, we stepped forward, saluted the Air Force officer, a general, walked to the airplane, got on the airplane, sat down, out of work. Until that airplane went gear up and off the beach and out of North Vietnam's airspace, did that take place. The engines could have fallen off that 141, and the energy within that back end could have taken us to Mars and back. Here on T. Mike didn't know this, but he found my airplane. Because I'm an Eagle driver too. Or was. Now I'm just a little bit. Real homecoming. This is what it looked like 1973 at Shepherd Air Force Base. My wife and my mom. 40 years later, here we are down in Dallas for a deal that American Airlines put on for us. We pay tribute to the river rats and to the 4th of July people. Returning with honor, I can't say it enough. If you find yourself in that situation, you must do everything you can to come out with your head high, shoulders back, and thank the Lord that you were able to serve your country under the most difficult circumstances that you'll ever encounter. That guy right there is the bug. He's the guy that tortured me and tortured 300 at least other fellow prisoners. Tomorrow, this is you guys. You're tomorrow. You're the future. And this is what the pilots will see when they go to Vance. These kids just got their airplanes, and they're tickled pink, and they're all fighter pilots. Other than we've got a B-52 and a B-1. The rest are F-15s, F-16s, A-10s, and of course the big ace and yours truly. Mike and I go to that every 3 weeks at Vance. And that's where we meet guys like you. Kyle Parker's right there right now. He was your cadet commander last year. I hope you like my date. Oh yeah, I guess it is Jeremiah Weed Carlson. He was an F-15 backseater, Strike Eagle. Went to pilot training, got assigned the F-15 Strike Eagle, and going back to combat. He was the #1 graduate of the class, Vance. They offered him the F-22, the world's supreme air superiority fighter. Mr. Weed says, I would rather take the fight to the enemy now in an F-15E than wear the glory of flying the best airplane today. God, come on, it's again. He's been in combat. He knows what it's like. And he's willing to go back and do it. That's the future. You guys are the future. Gals, whether you're going to fly an F-18, 4 girls flying F-15s up in Alaska, or you're the toughest gal on the block with that thing. I mean, she could take some names, I think. Okay. That's us now, Mike and I, sorry to say. Here's what we were. Here's those that did not make it. Okay, questions? Complaints, corrects? I'll bring Mike up so you can toss donuts at either one of us. Go ahead. I know you're, well, you guys all late, you're all going crap. Just
whenever your plane was shot down and you were about to release the grenades, you said that the enemy wasn't taking any prisoners of war, they would have cut your head off. But you still give up anyway?
Just because I was in North Vietnam with regular troops, rather than Laos. Laos was not getting prisoners. Other questions? Well, I know we got something for us. Let's get out of here because these old guys, geezers, have been talking way too long. Yes, no, anything for Mike? Come on, guys, please. Somebody stand up and say something. Yes, no? Sir, speak.
You were POW,
Yes.
your living quarters, was it outside on the ground, or you see the light of day?
Light of day, no. Well, yes, through a crack. I spent 90 days in solitary confinement. That was the longest of all the new guys being February of 72 through release in March of 73. Robbie Reisner and Edwin Stockdale and others spent up to 4 years in solitary confinement. And that room was 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. A wall and a wall. About this wide. 4 years in solitary confinement. You have to control this to survive. How guys do it? They built a house, board by board, nail by nail, all the way up. They tore it down, rebuilt it, redesigned it, and tore it down, and kept rebuilding. You've got to keep this thing active. For as soon as you lose the desire to live, they will have a body bag for you. I guarantee you. Other questions?
Do you remember the first thing you ate after?
Yes, the day I got shot down was Ash Wednesday, which is also the beginning of Tet. And thankfully, it was a rice fish head cake thing. And my back seater looked at that and says, I will not eat that. And I says, Ralph, we will eat that, and you're gonna make your mind say that that is a Philly cheesesteak. So, eat much for him. Other than that, it was pumpkin soup, which will give you broth with pig rind, no meat, maybe a hair or two sticking out.
So what'd you eat at Clark when you got to Clark?
We ate everything.
No, you.
Oh, I can't remember what I did. Okay. But guys ate 3 or 4 dozens of eggs. One guy. Thousands of gallons of ice cream. Stood in the shower for almost a day, hot water. Oh my God. And it's the things that we today take for granted. You know? And that's why we are so weak as a nation. It's because we take so much for granted and we don't appreciate the sacrifices that have been made so that we are free. I gave you one example. I hate to keep talking, but one example. I was talking to a Chinese man that had been at Tiananmen Square when the tanks run over his own people. He was at this briefing I was giving. And he came down and says, excellent, thank you for that. And so I got to talk to him and I says, what do you like the most about our nation now that you're here living in the States? And he says, without a doubt, it's your freedoms. For I come from a country where freedom was not, did not, could not, will not exist. I said, I believe you, and I understand that, and I agree. I asked him, well, then what do you dislike the most about this great nation of ours? And he looked me squarely in the eye, and he says, sir, it's the freedoms that you have. And just backed up, and I started to scratch my head, and he says, because you take it for granted. You don't appreciate the blood, the sweat, and tears that have been poured out for years and years and years. You take it for granted. And there's so many liberals now in the world, especially in this nation, and at one house that we know of, that's painted white, that it's difficult. We're a small group, but we must spread the word that freedom is not free. It comes at a price. That price is blood, sweat, tears, and the fact that you and you and you will be the ones that will replace the guys on the line today. Well, Ronald Reagan said that freedom is not in our DNA, passed down from generation to generation, but it comes from the generation behind us that will preserve the freedoms that we enjoy. And think about it. It's going to be in their hands. It's in your hands now. Take the ball and run with it. Go back.
When you first went to Vietnam, when you were an artillery officer in the infantry battalion, what did you do as a artillery officer, like fire support officer? What was your role there?
The company was either 92 or 110 men. And it was broken into 3 platoons, 162636. And I stayed right next to the company commander, because my responsibilities for him. And he had 2 radio operators, one for company, one for battalion push, and I had mine for fire support. He relied on me for fire support. I learned very quickly. He relied on me to be the navigator of this infantry company, because I had to know exactly where we are when I would call the artillery unit. And it's extremely overpowering when you've got guys scattered almost 150 meters on line, on trail, and so you could get to call. You had to call for artillery pretty quickly, so you had to know where you are, and you're constantly telling them, update where you are. And so I had a huge responsibility, and one of the things I wanted to make absolutely sure is I didn't kill any of my infantrymen. It was just on my heart the whole time. So I always had to know where I was, and many times the aircraft would come over and I'd ask for a spot. We would take a grid intersection and name it like ladies or girls. And they would say, from Marianne, left 0.4, down 0.4. So I knew I was in this grid square and where it was. And a lot of times, the infantrymen didn't know where they were. So we would mark with smoke before we had an airstrike, or we'd mark with smoke when we really brought a lot of artillery in. So it was an enormous amount of responsibility. When you perform well, the sergeants, the infantry sergeants will let you know. And one of the most proud moments I had was for a big black sergeant come to me and say, you know, LT, you got potential. And I didn't know that was potential. He said, you got potential. And I was shaking like a leaf. And nobody got killed, and I didn't put anybody in gun target line. But it was only 4 months of my life as a forward observer with the infantry. But they were very defining of what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Because you can't run, you can't hide, you are the man. And it was always a very proud thing for me to know that I was an artillery forward observer with the infantry, because the infantry is the basic core element of the Army. Everybody supports the infantryman. And let me talk to you quickly about eating. We eat C rations. You take a sock and put them in there. And you never want to be the new guy making a dumb mistake. Now, we had something called a P-38, which is a can opener. And we stopped to eat once. And I had peaches. Peaches. You crack 2 sides of it, and you suck the juice out, and then you eat the peaches. And that thing went, and that's when it dawned on me, we couldn't hear the insects. We couldn't hear the birds. We couldn't hear the monkeys. And that's when it dawned on me, there was something going on here. I thought typically it was a new guy. You know, I just thought it was a new guy screwing up. But it was a defining moment, because then we knew they were all around. We were near an ambush, but it was just incredible. And I remember after it happened, and then we took care of everything, the NCOs coming up saying, don't worry about that noise, because we quit focusing on what we were doing, everybody started paying attention to what was going on. But to me, 23 years in the Army, all those things, I always think about those grunts. Always about the grunts, because I couldn't associate with them. I had, my dad told me you can't be friends with them. And it's exactly like the movie We Were Soldiers, Band of Brothers, where Captain Winter says you can't gamble with enlisted men, can't take their money. So there was a bond there that established, but what I learned at Fort Sill is not what I did in the jungle. It was on-the-job training real quick, and I'm positive that's what Steve Woolwichell learned the minute he got in country in Afghanistan with those infantrymen in the 187. So it's very important to not hurt your own people with friendly fire. I don't know if I answered it, that's what it meant to me. We really appreciate this time to come here, and we appreciate you. I know it's over the time limit, but you guys mean a lot to me and Bill, and to our great American taxpayer, Mark Veazey, and to Chuck DeBellevue. That's why we really enjoy coming up here. We like to be kind of transparent when we cook all that stuff, because it gives you an opportunity to set it up in that joint lounge and just meet each other, chow down, and boy, do you guys eat. Oh man, there's nothing left. And it's just fun to do for us. So we're gonna do as long as we can, and we are always gonna be Cowboys. I don't care what the football team does. This is a place that launched us into life. And Bill didn't tell you, but he was in the Air Force 21 years, then he flew with American Airlines for 20 years. He flew the 737 for $10,500. And it's because we launched out of here. That's how important the school is. So all you have to do is three things: perform, perform, perform. That's all. And do the best you can. We thank you for this time.